Hey, friends and lovers. I'm KamalaDevi, and happy new moon. I want to talk to you today about love, one of my favorite topics, and particularly about love as a drug. There's lots to be said about love. It's, as multidimensional as we are, and then the love between every being is incredibly unique. But uh, there are some massive trends, I would say, or themes or patterns that I've noticed as a sex and relationship coach for over 2 decades now. And I want to share more about the distinction between that juicy, wild, love drunk, honeymoon, falling in love state and the more sustainable, nourishing, uh, in love, like with the longer term grounded experience. So before I get into the brain chemistry of NRE, new relationship energy is another way of saying it, or limerence. There's lots of words for it. I want to disclaim that when I start talking about brain chemistry, it's going to be reductionist. I don't want to minimize that love is a mystical experience. It's a wildly mysterious, uh, act of grace, and it has social dynamics and psychological associations and projections, and there's a whole psychological dimension, and there's obviously a spiritual component, and all these different dimensions are super valid. And I'm just right now going to talk for a moment about the brain chemistry because we now know we can see it in MRI machines when people are in love. There's a whole lighting up of all kinds of different parts of the brain, and there's a cascade of dopamine in really high levels and norepinephrine, and there's endorphins going on and other things, other neurotransmitters that I can't pronounce, but there's a whole cascade going on. And it's really similar to what happens in the brain of someone when they're, peaking on mushrooms or in cocaine, or it's really a high. And when there's a heartbreak, or the object of the love is gone, the experience in the body is very much like a withdrawal. There's same symptoms happening, and there's a sense of I need it. I can't survive without it. It's like a single focus on it. And part of that is because when this cascade is happening in the brain, there parts of the brain actually shut down, like the amygdala, and parts of the temporal lobe that help us track time, which we know that in love feeling when you're losing track of time. But the decision-making parts of the brain, which are yeah, it seems like a good idea to get that person's name tattooed on my ass, or whatever that decision is that happened in that relationship that made sense, that may not make sense later. So, parts of the brain shut off, parts of the brain turn on, and it's so intense that the brain can't even sustain it for that long. We flood the brain, and it depletes certain pathways, and there's a sort of sometimes there's a crash and a falling out of love. And sometimes when we developmentally mature into a deeper, more sustainable state of love, uh, the experience is usually about a year. It can last for a year, unless you're in a long-term relationship, in which it could last longer. But we get flooded, and can only sustain it for so long. So what's really powerful about knowing this as a chemistry state is that we can also kind of biohack. We can say, okay, I'm experiencing the signs of obsessing and replaying dates, and I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't not think of this person. Let me moderate. Let me slow down. Let me work towards more sustainability, surround myself with people that know me. And it doesn't take away from the love. It's just how do I ground this with activities that produce more serotonin. Because when the dopamine's high, the serotonin goes down. And serotonin's what we need to feel, sustainable happiness. It's what we feel, what we have more when we're in love. And that sustainable happiness that is more grounded, nurturing, can come from going on long walks or watching the sunset, deeper breaths, baths, different ways of experiencing love in a nurturing, down-regulated way. And moderating this can not only make it last longer, but it can help us make better decisions. And one of the biggest things that I address as a sex and relationship coach is how much chaos is created when somebody's in this NRE, and the impact that has either on their family or their other relationships or their work. And when we can moderate that, it can have less impact and it can be a more sustainable, path. And, and I want to make a note about, this isn't, exclusive to poly people, but people who are managing multiple relationships, that one of the skills that you want to build is falling in love and taking all that high and all that juice and learning to bring it home and enhancing our relationships. Previously existing relationships will celebrate and have more compersion when you can bring that high home and not have it, be your only focus and not have it distract from, or there's, you're not comparing to. So it's a whole set of skills in order to be able to fall in love and make that sustainable with your current ecosystem. And it's, well worth learning those skills because it's what makes the difference. It can make or break your relationships, all relationships. So I do want to name that being in love itself is so nourishing. And I want to make a case for it because I know this can feel so hyped up and so attractive, and yet there is something so rewarding about being with people who know you, around whom you have all your critical faculties and can actually reveal the depths of your vulnerability, with whom you can share your opinions, your thoughts, and not worry about who do I have to be in order to be loved. So it's a really beautiful thing, especially when you're in love, to remember how important and how valuable it is to be, when you're falling in love, to be like, I want to get to the state where we can actually feel really comfortable around each other without butterflies, without sweaty palms. That's an important, goal. And a lot of times when people are in this state, they're like, how do I get back there? How do I fall back in love? And it's fun to kind of moderate a bit and say, okay, let's do some wild rebonding, and activate some of those pathways again too. But the other piece I want to name, because we're talking about love as a drug, I want to talk a little bit and compare it to sex as a drug, because everybody knows sex is intoxicating and high, and and it has, sex has its own chemistry. And we know, as the editor of Sex Shamans, sex is often compared to medicine. In the book Sex Shamans, we talk about the collective definition that really what it is to be a sex shaman is to use sexual energy, eros, desire, kundalini, and that is an ecstatic, altering state, so that once you're in a higher state, you can oracle, channel, download, valuable visions and tools and tips for the community. So it's like you're using sex as a drug. And so oftentimes when we fall in love, our libido goes up, our hormonal cascade increases. So there's a lot more desire for sex. And so now we're mixing medicines. So being in love and then having more sex means that it's like double the medicine, which is not surprising that some people who are in open relationships have the agreement, like you can have sex, but you can't fall in love, like it's just too much. And it's understandable why, because it's like double the the inhibitors on the impulse control on the brain. It's a lot to contend with when someone's in love and having sex. And so what I want to just name is that both sex and love can be healthy, can be nourishing, can be awesome, intoxicating states, in the same way that like drugs aren't inherently bad. There's recreational drug use, which can be really fun, but then there's addictive drug use, which can be destructive to your whole lifestyle. And what we want is how to use sex and love like a medicine, like a sacrament, like it is a holy experience and not one that is detrimental to your previously existing relationships or to your lifestyle. And a big part of that is like learning to moderate and learning more about what's happening, and leaning in to be nourished in other sources so that you're not dependent on that person and those activities. So I hope that this is illuminating. Maybe you recognize yourself or your partners as I share this. And I would love to talk more about it with you, and or answer questions in a presentation that I'm going to be doing this full moon. So since I'm working on this book, Poly Playbook, I thought, I'll put together some of my writings and some of my new teachings in a presentation, a brand new one, in a couple of weeks. And I'd love for you to come and join me. I'll put the details in the description and on my website soon, KamalaDevi.com. And I hope to talk to you on that call or in one of the comments soon. Please like and share, and talk to you soon. Blessings.